Welcome to Trending Unpacked, the show where we explore the stories behind the trends shaping our world. Today we're looking at something that really exploded recently, the new political thriller, A House of Dynamite.
Yeah.
And this isn't just about, a popular movie. It's really about the intense reaction it caused.
Exactly. We're talking about a film built around a terrifyingly simple idea. One single missile strike, origin unknown. And the reaction, the sheer speed and size of the audience response, it seems to have genuinely shifted the public conversation around nuclear threats and, maybe more importantly, government vulnerability.
Yeah, that vulnerability piece feels key. So our focus today is to unpack what happened here. We've got the release details, viewer numbers, official reactions, even some of those wild internet theories to really understand why this specific story, this piece of fiction, hits such a nerve right now in late 2025.
It's almost a case study in how fast anxiety can just spread.
Okay, let's set the scene with the film itself. For anyone who maybe missed the initial wave, House of Dynamite is a 2025 American political thriller. And it's definitely not your typical action flick. It feels very procedural, almost like you're in the room while a crisis unfolds.
Yes, and that feeling is very much by design, I think. It starts with the director, Kathryn Bigelow. Her involvement immediately tells you something. She's known for films that find drama in the details, in the procedures.
Like The Hurt Locker or Zero Dark 30.
Exactly. She turns process into high-stakes tension, so you kind of go in expecting this almost documentary-like feel, even though it's fiction. Applying that style to a nuclear launch scenario, it gives it this immediate, unsettling plausibility. She's not selling spectacle. She's selling the messy, difficult reality of managing an unthinkable crisis.
Right. And carrying that weight, you've got a really strong cast. They didn't go for, typical action heroes. We're talking Idris Elba, Rebecca Ferguson.
Key choices.
Yeah.
These are actors known for bringing intelligence and, well, a certain seriousness to their roles.
So you buy them as high-level people under immense stress.
Absolutely. That casting is critical for the film's credibility. If you believe the people on screen are capable, intelligent strategists wrestling with this, then you believe the scenario itself feels more real. It elevates it. It's not just entertainment. It starts to feel like commentary, like a glimpse into a possible near future. It makes the whole thing feel grounded, even with the extreme premise.
Okay, let's talk about that premise because it's the engine for everything.
Yeah.
The U.S. government responding to a nuclear missile launch. But the key is, it's unidentified.
That one word changes the entire dynamic. Unidentified. It's brilliant in a terrifying way. Most Cold War thrillers, the enemy, Soviets, a rogue state, whatever. There were protocols, even if they were horrifying ones. Retaliation plans, hotlines.
Yeah, established rules of engagement, sort of.
Right. But unidentified.
Right.
All those rules just shatter. Suddenly, it's not about geopolitics anymore. It becomes this intense internal scramble. Is it another country spoofing signals? Is it a cyber attack making a domestic launch look foreign? Is it one of our systems malfunctioning? A glitch.
The uncertainty itself becomes the enemy.
Precisely. They have to decide whether to retaliate, potentially starting a global war, with absolutely no certainty about who or what they're retaliating against. That ambiguity is just engineered for maximum dread. You start questioning the system itself.
It feels like it turns the whole defense apparatus against itself. The enemy isn't just out there, it's the clock, the confusion, the potential for internal breakdown.
Yeah, the idea that the biggest vulnerability might not be attack, but just systemic failure under pressure. Communication collapses, wires get crossed.
And that tension clearly resonated. Let's get into the release and the numbers because they're pretty staggering. It premiered at Venice, got good reviews.
The standard prestige path initially.
But then, bam, straight to Netflix, October 24th, 2025.
And that's the game changer. The festival buzz becomes instant global access. It compresses what might have been months of rollout into like a weekend.
And the numbers show it. This is crucial. 22.1 million views in the first 3 days.
Wow.
Straight to number one on Netflix's top 10 list. And just stayed there.
Okay, 22.1 million in 3 days. That's not just a hit movie. That's a cultural event happening in real time. You have to factor in how streaming works now in 2025. It's not just people finding it. The platform itself is pushing it. The algorithms see political thriller, high stakes, and boom, it's targeted globally, instantly.
So everyone's talking about it at the same time.
Exactly. Within 72 hours, you've got conversations about nuclear war, about government competence happening simultaneously in London, Tokyo, New York, everywhere. There's no time for slow, measured reviews. It's just this intense, immediate, often emotional reaction.
It turns the film into something that feels like breaking news.
Yeah, just because of the sheer velocity and scale of its arrival, you can't ignore something that 22 million households are watching almost simultaneously.
Which leads directly to the big debates it sparked. You mentioned the audience reaction was immediate, and it seemed to split people.
Right. Two main things seem to bubble up instantly. First, that ambiguous ending we'll get more into, that people were really wrestling with it. And second, tied to that were questions about how realistically it portrayed the government and military response. Was it competent? Incompetent?
So some people praised the chaos, saying, yeah, that's probably how it would be.
They felt the messiness, the uncertainty, the difficult ethical choices under pressure that felt real to them. But then others were quite critical.
Saying what?
Arguing that the level of security failure, the communication breakdowns, the sort of perceived incompetence in the decision-making, that it was exaggerated, maybe even irresponsible to portray it that way.
Interesting. So the film almost acts like a Rorschach test.
In a way, yes. It wasn't just, did you like the movie? It was probing something deeper. Do you trust the systems that are supposed to protect us? Or do you suspect they're as fragile as this film suggests? Because it felt so plausible, so near future, the line between fiction and commentary just blurred immediately, and that set the stage for, well, for the official reactions.
Like that tension between the movie world and the real world. That's where things got really interesting. Okay, let's dig into that audience reaction more, especially the ending. You mentioned it was ambiguous, and that seemed to be a major point of contention for viewers. People don't usually like ambiguity when the stakes are, well, global annihilation.
No, they generally want closure, and the frustration, you could see it online, it was palpable, but honestly, that frustration is probably a sign of the film's success, paradoxically.
How so?
It means people were deeply invested. But the ambiguity itself, it feels like a very deliberate artistic choice, and maybe a political one too. It's the opposite of a neat Hollywood wrap-up. Think about it. By not showing definitively what happened, did the missile hit? Where did it come from? Was it stopped? Maybe it ends on a shot that just implies catastrophe. The film denies you that catharsis.
So the anxiety lingers after the credits roll.
Exactly. You leave not thinking, phew, they solved it, but questioning the real world's fragility. It keeps the threat alive in your mind rather than neatly contained within the story.
It basically forces the audience to keep debating it, right? To fill in the blanks themselves.
Precisely. The conversation shifts from what happened in the movie to, could this really happen, and what would the outcome actually be?
And you saw people doing that online, trying to solve it.
Oh, immediately. Theories were flying. Was it an accidental launch covered up? A non-state actor using stolen tech, making retaliation impossible? Was the missile even real? Or was it a massive cyber hack designed to cause panic? That ambiguity just became this incredibly fertile ground for everyone's worst fears.
And that's where the real world couldn't ignore it anymore. The government actually weighed in. Let's unpack that realism versus fiction critique. What did they say?
Well, the response was notable for how quick and direct it was. It suggests they felt the film was genuinely impacting public perception. The Pentagon specifically issued a public statement.
Really? A formal statement about a movie?
Yes. They called parts of the film's depiction of defense protocols and how failures might happen wildly inaccurate.
Wildly inaccurate. That's strong language.
It is, and it's a fascinating move. It tells you the film hit a nerve, it achieved such cultural saturation, and felt real enough to enough people that the government felt it necessary to publicly fact-check fiction. They were essentially fighting a narrative battle against the film's hypothetical scenario.
Were they specific about what was inaccurate? Was it the tech, the procedures?
It seemed focused on the portrayal of internal processes, the communication breakdowns, the security lapses, the decision-making delays. That seemed to be what they pushed back on hardest. It suggests the film's most sensitive point wasn't the external threat, but the depiction of potential internal chaos.
Defending their own competence, basically.
You could say that. And that intervention, of course, just poured fuel on the fire. For people already skeptical of government or institutions, the denial might have sounded like, see, it must be close to the truth if they're reacting this strongly.
Right. While for others, it might have successfully framed it as just Hollywood being overly dramatic.
Exactly. But either way, it kept A House of Dynamite in the headlines for weeks longer than a typical movie review cycle. It turned water cooler talk into a genuine political discussion point.
And that discussion was raging on social media. You saw the hashtag House of Dynamite everywhere. It wasn't just reviews. It was people sharing reaction GIFs, writing these long threads, dissecting scenes, proposing theories.
Yeah, the platforms became this space for collective anxiety processing. People weren't just talking about the film, they were using the film's premise to talk about their own fears, running what-if scenarios about global stability, tech failure.
Which connects to this idea, you mentioned the systems vulnerability theory. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. It's the idea that the film resonated so strongly because it tapped into a very current, very 21st century fear. Not just fear of attack, but fear that our own complex systems, governments, defense networks, technology are inherently fragile, vulnerable to breakdown from within.
So different from Cold War fears of, say, the Soviet Union.
Yeah, subtly different. Back then, the fear was often directed at a clear external enemy. Today, there's this added anxiety about the systems themselves. Reliance on aging infrastructure, complex software that could glitch, communication protocols failing under stress, human error amplified by technology.
The fear that the machine is too complex to control, almost.
That's a good way to put it. A House of Dynamite just crystallized that feeling. That maybe our institutional resilience isn't as robust as we assume. That when things get really bad really fast, the system itself might buckle due to its own complexity, not just because of the external threat.
And that feeling feels pretty universal right now.
It does. It explains why the conversation went viral. It felt personal and immediate, touching on anxieties about technology, institutional trust, the speed of information, all of it. So the discussion around the film became a sort of proxy debate for all these bigger modern worries. Nuclear war, yes, but also tech failure, loss of faith in authority, the breakdown of order in a crisis. It landed at a time when trust was maybe already shaky, and it offered this terrifying cinematic, see, told you so.
Okay, let's pull back a bit and analyze what this whole phenomenon tells us. What does the massive success of A House of Dynamite signal about what audiences want right now? Heavy stakes seem popular and maybe unresolved endings.
I think it does signal a shift. Audiences, or at least a significant portion of them, seem less interested in purely escapist stories with guaranteed neat resolutions. There's an appetite for complexity, for narratives that maybe mirror the uncertainty of the real world a bit more.
Even if it leaves them feeling frustrated.
Perhaps because it does. That frustration signifies engagement, and it ties into the changing role of the audience. An ambiguous ending like this isn't just an ending, it's an invitation.
An invitation to what?
To participate. It shifts the burden of meaning. The film presents the scenario, raises the questions, but then it implicitly asks you, the viewer, to wrestle with the consequences, to decide what the most likely or most terrifying outcome is. You move from being passive consumer to active interpreter.
And that keeps the conversation going long after the movie ends. If they'd just shown the missile being stopped, people would talk about it for a day, maybe.
Exactly. The ambiguity is what fuels the sustained debate, because you have to decide. Was it catastrophe? Was it averted? What does it mean? That investment keeps it alive.
And the platform it launched on is inseparable from that speed and intensity.
Well,
the significance of streaming in 2025. It feels crucial here.
Yeah.
Dropping on Netflix globally all at once.
Absolutely critical. It's not a slow build like a traditional theatrical release. It's instantaneous. The sheer reach of a platform like Netflix means the cultural conversation ignites everywhere, simultaneously. Faster, more intense, as you said. It often outpaces formal reviews or analysis. The global buzz hits critical mass in hours, not weeks. London is talking about it the same morning as Los Angeles and Seoul.
Which forces everyone else to react quickly too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Media outlets, commentators,
Mm-hmm.
even the Pentagon, as we saw.
Yes. The velocity changes everything. It creates this feedback loop where the scale of the conversation itself becomes part of the story, making the film feel even more urgent and relevant. It's not history. It feels like it's happening now.
So taking the broadest view, what does A House of Dynamite represent? Is it just entertainment or something more?
I think it clearly moved beyond just entertainment. It's an example of fiction becoming a potent, urgent, cautionary tale. And, intentionally or not, a political comment. Bigelow used the language of a thriller, suspense, high stakes, emotional engagement to basically force a public conversation about existential risk and institutional competence. She gave people a scenario they could feel, not just read about abstractly.
And the fact that real-world institutions felt the need to respond publicly.
That's the proof, isn't it? It shows the fiction landed a blow, that it successfully challenged perceptions and maybe even trust. It used fear, effectively, to make people think about security in a way a policy briefing never could.
So for listeners navigating this kind of intense media landscape, what's the practical takeaway? How should we engage with something like this?
I think the key is critical engagement, especially with ambiguity. When a story leaves things deliberately unresolved, particularly one with such high stakes, the vital question to ask yourself is, why?
What is this ambiguity trying to achieve?
Exactly. Is it just a weak ending, or is it a tool? Is it trying to make you uncomfortable for a reason? You need to try and filter the noise, the hot takes, the outrage, the official spin, and analyze the intent. With A House of Dynamite, the scale of the reaction suggests that ambiguity was a powerful choice, designed to make us confront uncomfortable possibilities rather than just letting us off the hook when the credits roll. It demands we think actively about the implications.
Well, thanks for tuning in to Trending Unpacked. Whether you caught A House of Dynamite or just felt the ripples from its release, the story definitely reminds us how fiction can tap into very real, very current anxieties, and maybe how fragile some of our assumptions about stability and control might actually be.
Indeed. And the lingering question from the film, maybe the most provocative one, isn't really about the fictional missile. It's whether our real-world systems, our networks of trust and technology, are truly resilient enough for the kinds of instant, high-stakes, uncertain threats we might face in this hyper-connected age. Something to mull over.
Definitely food for thought. Next time on Trending Unpacked, we're shifting gears completely. We'll be looking at real-world policies, specifically S&APP benefits, what they are, the people they serve, and why they're back in the spotlight now. Hope you can join us then.